be here today. I think Engage as an organisation, I helped Jerry and others to set up Engage about 15, 16 years ago now. And it was about bringing together residents from the city centre and the waterfront, leaseholders at the time, and it's developed into evolved into a very different organisation. But I think at the heart of that is having citizens leading on, sort of looking at some of the things that the city is going to face in the future, and this is obviously a huge issue. The second point that I wanted to make is around sort of people have touched on the US elections and the, climate change and net zero and how that's in there. I think there's a more existential issue with this, and it's around isolation. I think if you look at we're interconnected. It's about reciprocity, but it's also about openness, and it's about people collaborating and working together to address some of these massive issues that are affecting humanity. And I think in Liverpool, we are trying to do that. We are trying to engage, and we're trying to be open. And I think we can collaborate and we can learn from other cities in the UK and beyond. And I think the journey the City Council's been on over the last few years, we haven't always done that enough, and that is something I think that this current administration really wants to do in the city. My role on Cabinet is around growth and economy. A huge part of that has been about the local plan refresh, the planning framework for the whole of the city over the next 30 years. Alongside of that, we've been developing an inclusive growth strategy. And I think what we've got locked into both of those is around that commitment to net zero. I think some of the big things that we need to address in there in Liverpool is around development, particularly around housing development. It looks like we're going to have to develop around 35,000 new homes in Liverpool over the next 30 years. That is an opportunity. It's an opportunity, as Simon made with net zero, with fuel poverty, with using new technologies in there. I think we need to lock in green open space and access to green space into everything that we do. We have some fantastic green spaces in the city, but too many residents in too many communities in Liverpool don't have adequate access to green space. On transport, it is about looking at new transport infrastructure, cycling and walking, as well as the opportunities afforded by things like bus re-regulation and as those powers come on board in Liverpool. But it's about reducing the car dependency in the city. The ward I represent, City Centre North, literally about half a mile away from where we are, you've got a community like Marybone with some of the highest incidents of childhood asthma and respiratory illnesses probably anywhere in Western Europe. And I think we need to be looking at those issues about air quality and what we are going to do on that. The final point that I'd make is about jobs and about good growth, good inclusive growth in Liverpool. This is an opportunity as we make that just transition, as we reach net zero. It isn't an either or. It isn't about economic growth or net zero. I think by achieving net zero, by that journey that we're going to go on and that just transition, it will create growth, it will create jobs, it will create economic opportunities for people. The challenge that we've got as a city council is how we ensure that there's fair access to that is done in a way that supports rather than undermines those wider social policy objectives that we've got as a city council.
Okay, thanks Jerry for inviting me to come along today. Thanks to Mark and Simon. So Mark, you said, does anyone remember LS Local Strategic Partnerships? I did my PhD on Local Strategic Partnerships, and I struggle to convince people I'm not cool. So I've got two kind of core themes I want to kind of try and draw together. So the first is that My first job after my PhD was working on a project called Low Carbon Liverpool, where so it was the University of Liverpool, Liverpool Vision, so the economic development arm of the council, and the Chamber of Commerce, looked at how Liverpool and kind of Liverpool's core actors could kind of work on Liverpool's low carbon economy. That was sort of 10, 12 years ago now, so it's a decade or so ago. Mark talked about the importance of partnership. The key work we did in that green partnership was getting all the key people around the room and to kind of agree. Now, one of the notes I wrote down, I think, is that the importance of the leadership that the council provided there and the weight that the council give. And I think Nick's kind of alluded to it, that the council sometimes didn't necessarily buy into this as much as some of the other people. But the thing that I kind of reflect on that's nice now is the people who were the sort of middle managers in that group who were trying to convince their bosses are now the people who are in charge 10 years on. So for me, I think the second point is, at the minute I've been marking student essays. And the reason why I'm saying this is that there's some students who hand in a week early and they write lovely essays and they put lots of work into it. And that's the European Green Capitals of 10 years ago, right? The Bristols of the world. Some students hand in their coursework at the last minute, right? And I think we're at that point now. We're the kind of the last minute students. We've waited 10 years, we waited to the deadline. But some students write wonderful essays when they're under pressure. When their back's to the wall, they really somehow dig deep and find it somewhere. And I think, for me, that's the thing I want to reflect on, is that's our challenge. We don't want to be the student that just really phones it in and writes a barely passing essay. We can write something beautiful. And I think, for me, I think all those points about the just transition, I think, for me, I think we should ask ourselves, is it just to defer difficult decisions? If we kick this can down the road any more, are we going to, who are we going to affect? Ultimately, the poorest people in the city are going to bear the biggest brunt. And for me, I think increasingly, as we get deeper into this, I always reflect that we talk about the carrot, and that's very laudable, but I think at times we need to start talking about the stick as well. There are people in this city, and I must admit, I'm one of them. I live in a very nice bit of the city. I can do more. I can happily do more. There's people on my street who can do more, who own 3 cars. Right? We can pay more to drive into the city. We don't need to park in one of the 35,000 car parks in the city. And I think it's absolutely right that we talk about the balance and making sure that the people who are, particularly in the North End, come with us and benefit from this. But equally, I think there are people who do more. And I like the line about, climate change is a middle-class pursuit. But the note I wrote down was like, let us do it as well. I think there's a lot of people who want to do more. And I think, if there's the resources there that are poured into bits of the city where they can do more, I think people will also step up and make it easier for, I think, the city to get to where it needs to be. But yeah, I think at some point, I think it's 11th hour, but we can do something great if we put our mind to it.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Simon and Mark. Right. So I'm trying to not be negative, but I do have one story to tell you, which relates to Dave Tudgy, actually, in Bristol. I was working with him up in Sefton. We were trying to build a 1 megawatt wind turbine that was going to be community owned, so it's not a Liverpool City Council issue. And ultimately, Sefton Council took the land away that we were going to use to build that. But anyway, so that's the negative thing out of the way. I've heard a lot of positive things to date, and I kind of feel like it's a bit of a challenge to Liverpool City Councils to take up some of the stuff that's happened. So I'm presuming Bristol does have a clean air zone. So I know Liverpool is kind of struggling to get that off the ground, so I think it's something to think about how we can move that forward. And again, this is partly about how we take people with us, and talking about asthma and the health effects of the children. That might be some way of making people feel more responsible if they're driving their cars into the city centre or around their areas. What else did I have written down? I think the thing with working with the community, I think it's more than 50%. I think it's two-thirds, really. I think that's a huge part of what we're going to have to do. I think what is really good at the minute, I do think Liverpool City Council does have good plans and good strategies and good people in place. So it is that thing of we just need to start getting the action right and start engaging with the communities to start making things happen. One thing, I Alex alluded to there was a partnership, or there has been a partnership in the past, but there isn't a partnership currently in Liverpool. So maybe we can start a partnership tonight and like start getting that together, because like Bristol's had one for 10 years, and it has been something I've been thinking about for a while. I'm obsessed with partnerships and networks. I've set up something which is like an active travel network in Liverpool, and that's been doing really good work. And again, because the council, there's been a change in culture in the council in the last couple of years, and people are much more open to collaboration than they were previously, I think. I think Bristol Energy Network could be a great example to follow. I mean, I like to think, building on Alex's analogy there, maybe we shouldn't, like, we could just copy off the other students. And also, I think we've been really clever and strategic. We've let you do it first, make all the mistakes, and then we're just going to do the easy stuff now. So yeah, I think that's all good. And I think that was probably everything. Oh yeah, actually, Zero Carbon Liverpool has put in a bid for a community energy funding to do carbon literacy training in community organisations across Liverpool. So if you can all Google us and go to the Space Hive page or whatever, and then like the page. I mean, give us some money if you want, but I think engagement is also good. So just liking that page would be nice.
Yeah, for me, thank you both to Mark and Simon today. It's made me reflect on what we do as a cultural organisation in what is a deprived borough up in Prescott. So we are very good at community engagement. I think we're very, very good at it, but we're looking to engage the next generation of playwrights and the next generation of actors. We're not trying to engage the next generation of climate activists, and it's really made me think about actually how does our community engagement currently fit into a wider strategy or plan. I also think that we're quite cutting edge in what we do. So we've had plays and performances in our playhouse that have been to highlight climate change and the need to do more. But who do you think the audience is? The audience is like-minded individuals like yourself. We don't need to really engage you. You're already on board. It's about engaging people who probably don't have that at the forefront of their minds. So whilst the performances are outstanding and what they do is resonates, it only resonates with our audience. We're not really got anyone coming into the performances and seeing or going out of it and thinking very differently. So it's very important for us to think, and it's something that's made me reflect on how we look at our engagement moving forward. I think partnerships is also key for us as well. So I was fortunate to work at Liverpool One for ages, and we talked a lot about regeneration and how Liverpool One changed the face of the city. We're doing that on a much more micro level now, up at Knowsley, up in Prescott. So we are the first phase of what will be a major regeneration project. I've got solar panels on my building, really great. I've got plenty more space for solar panels on the building. I would love to be able to give those solar panels or the energy generated to local businesses and say, hey, you have that, and we can do it all together, and all of us together can have lower energy fees. That's not possible because of the funding. But what I can do is, as businesses come back to Eccleston Street, near to us, engage with them and build partnerships with them to see what we can do and see how we can all together engage our local community as well. So it really has made me think about, we normally do it insular, but it's definitely made me think, how can we look at it on a much wider level? Certainly for Prescott, certainly in a borough that is quite deprived. Cheers.